I want to welcome my new guest, and this I also want to tell everybody I'm so honored to have Centric Health and Centric Cardiology as a new sponsor of the Richard Bean Show, and we have Dr. Bridge Bombi with us. He's been coming on the show regularly here. Dr. Bombi, how are you, sir?
I'm well, Richard. How are you?
I'm doing terrific. Happy Father's Day weekend to you, sir.
Likewise, thank you.
Good. Dr. Bombi, you participated in Bakersfield College's Juneteenth celebration this week, and as part of that, you recorded a video on race in America and the black experience that I personally found so profound and so prophetic in some ways, and interesting in that your experience of America and Americana comes from, you're an immigrant. You weren't born here. You came over here. You said you were born in poverty. And yet the black experience speaks to you so strongly because of your own experience. Could you talk about that a little bit and maybe start off with when you talk about the concept of Americana, what that means to you?
Richard, I feel very privileged that I'm citizen of USA. I've traveled the world. I've seen multiple other countries. There is no country like it. That includes the imperfections we have in our country that demand further work. So the notion of Americana is a very empowering notion. It propels a human being to be the best they can be. It allows you the means and opportunities to be the best you can be. There isn't any external limitation that you face at multiple other countries, in multiple other countries. So it's liberating, it's empowering, and it's a beautiful way of fulfilling yourself and even exceeding your potential. Notion Americana has gone viral. It has made humanity better as a whole. And other people have more self-confidence, self-respect, and they want to achieve more in their own countries. So this isn't a notion confined to the borders. It is, like the virus, has gone viral, but in a good way.
Yeah, yeah. Before, how old were you when you came here, Dr. Bombi?
25.
25. And before you arrived here and you were a young adult, did you have an idea about the class system in America, the relations between black and white and other minorities, and white privilege and what? Did you have an idea of what it was like here?
I pretty much stayed focused in my younger days, paying attention to the college education and all that. No. So those were the things I discovered here, that the soaring rhetoric of the founding fathers didn't quite achieve the practical realities that one would have expected. And one of the major deficiencies in that rhetoric was the slavery, which 1863 emancipation tried to take care of. But as we all know, it was a well-intended, much-needed emancipation that turned out not to be an event, but a process. And that process is still unfolding and still has ways to go.
You remarked in your video, you said freedom from slavery without means to sustenance turned out to be hollow freedom and a one-way ticket to famine. Explain that.
I learned that from a very brief interview Martin Luther King did, in which he explained very eloquently the question I had and many other people have. So if I can come from India or China or wherever else and be the best I can be, how come the African Americans who live here, are born here, don't adopt that path? Mm-hmm. So the answer he gave was that over the generations, starting from several hundred years ago, the African Americans never were given the means, first as slaves, and when they were liberated, there was no land given to them. There were no means of sustenance. While the European immigrants were awarded land parcels so they could provide for themselves. That, along with the, if you historically, the 12 years of Reconstruction were followed by enactment of laws that further denied access to equality to African Americans. And then Jim Crow happened, and one thing after another. So the opportunity or the possibility for opportunity that seemed to exist was denied by the ground realities. And over the decades and generations, that has affected the structural psyche of the African Americans. The unevenness of the ground is that I could try to be the best when the entire family and the village to raise the child is all aligned towards that. But when you look at African American neighborhoods, that structure doesn't exist. So I find it an obligation on the part of the society that we provide the structure so that we take care of the children grounds up through education, through productive means, to engage them in a constructive manner in the societies. That is a huge return on investment versus letting the status quo persist and dealing with the consequences of failed early constructive interventions.
Dr. Mombi, does it surprise, you're an American, you've been here for many years now, but does it surprise you, the racial divide in this country, the fact that we're still in many ways black and white talking past each other? Does it surprise you that after all these years, we're talking a couple hundred years here, that we haven't moved on? Or am I missing something here? Should I be acknowledging how far we have come? Does it surprise you that we just seem stuck? I have, as a professional, as a young man, I covered the Liberty City black riots in Miami in the 80s. I covered the Rodney King riots in L.A. in 92. And here it just seems to be a recurring thing, and we seem stuck in a way. How does that strike you?
Richard, I consider myself a curious citizen who believes that together is better. There's a better way out there, and that has to be an inclusive way. As you said, if we talk past each other, we make no progress. Everybody, from their own vantage point, have a worldview. And that worldview can only be expanded through conversations, through listening, and through education. It is a huge waste when unresolved hostility continues in a society at a detriment to its collective forward movement. So, yes, could the progress would have been faster? Of course, it could be a lot faster. Even from now on, it should be a lot faster, but it will have its ups and downs. But you make a very good point that the trajectory has been upwards from the few hundred years ago, but the angle of trajectory needs to be elevated. We need to move up further, farther, quicker.
And how do we do that? In your video for Juneteenth for Bakersfield College, you said silence invites the status quo, and the status quo has to go. It's one of the questions I like to pose some of my guests here. What do you want from the white community whose heart is in the right place, but might be thinking, I don't know what to do. I can pray, I can have an open heart, but what is expected of me? How do I gain a seat at the table?
So, as I said, that's the vantage point of everybody is kind of confining because you stay within the same cultural bubble. It's time that the conversations happen between different members of the society across the race with an open mind for us to understand each other better, to make the movement forward, because otherwise, if you have to be burdened by our biases and prejudices, then it becomes more contentious and less productive. For instance, most people, and I included myself in that category, felt and feel that the access to opportunity is there. It's the lack of initiative that's stopping that. In other words, it's personal accountability that's a barrier, not the opportunity per se. But if you do a little more nuanced analysis, it doesn't hold out. I'm not a social scientist. I'm just, as I said, a curious citizen. But it seems to me that the status quo in which a segregation light exists is not the best way to maximize the potential of USA.
That's so well put. You also said that incarceration is a curse that encourages recidivism. Talk to me about that for just a second.
When you look across the world, my numbers may not be correct, but we have 25% of all the prisoners in the world, when we are a much smaller percentage of maybe more than 25%. But be as it may, the two components of incarceration. One, the crime and punishment part. Second, rehabilitation part. Actually, the third part is the cost. The cost, let's start with the numbers first. The cost per year per prisoner varies, but let's call it $100,000 or somewhere around there. So if you're going to spend $100,000 a year to punish somebody, I'm not sure if we're punishing the prisoner or we're punishing the taxpayers. Because if the median wage in this country for family of four is a little south of 60,000, so two families have to work, 8 people have to work for one prisoner to be kept in prison. I don't understand the math involved. I'd much rather we attend to the situations that diminish the pathway to incarceration, and I much rather, during incarceration, we allow rehabilitation so the recidivism isn't the only way out. We shouldn't make criminals professional criminals. We should figure out ways how to how to make the re-entry into society in a constructive manner, in a productive manner. That will have some return on investment.
Oh, wow. We're talking to Dr. Bridge Bombi here, one of the founders of Central Cardiology and Centric Health. Let's pivot here, Dr. Bombi, because I don't want you to leave without me asking you. The governor has put down an order that all Californians wear masks, both outside if they're in crowded places and inside in the workplace. I don't know what the compliance will be. This sounds to me, it seems to be all indications are, as you have said and other experts have said, that if we're not careful, this thing is going, as you have said time and again, the virus is not going away. And it seems to be coming back. Do you think this is a necessary move?
Let me answer that question in two subsets. First, the masks. I think the controversy about the masks is not medical. Any medical procedure or intervention that alleviates human misery shouldn't go through a political litmus test. The masks are established ways of limiting infection. My question to anybody who doubts that is, would you have a surgical team work on your open abdomen while they're fixing the internal organs, don't have the surgical team doesn't have the mask on, and they're coughing and sneezing in your open belly? If that image seems rebellious to you, the rationale for putting the masks, because An individual may be invincible. They may have very low probability of getting any bad consequences from the virus, but without recognizing it, they may be asymptomatic carriers or maybe subclinically symptomatic. They could be the conduits of spreading the virus to vulnerable people. It's not about the invulnerability of the person who's wearing the mask. It's the vulnerability of the people around you who could suffer the consequences of lack of mask. There's a substantial amount of data to support that. You know this hair salon story, I would guess, from Springfield, Missouri, where two hair salon people, workers, had the virus, and they had 140 people who were the customers. 140 people, because the mask was a prerequisite both for the customers and for the workers. Nobody got infection.
Wow. Okay. So I mean, because there's a lot of people who say, well, I'm not going to wear a mask because it's not effective.
And then you look at the countries, Japan, Singapore, Taiwan, Hong Kong. They have been salvaged, among other things, the attention to hygiene is by masks. So I believe that this is a controversy we can do without. This isn't how you vote. How you vote has nothing to do with the mask. Then some people also are concerned themselves, rightfully, that it's a veil and you hide your face. So no, you don't need to look like a bank robber. If you want, you can use a face shield which is transparent, and if it's good enough, it serves the same way. It protects both sides. The masks are an imperative tool in containing this epidemic from hurting us economy again. But is the political mandate or executive decision the best way to encourage conformity and compliance? Or is it a way to stir up the pot and indulge in political symbolism? I'd much rather the politicians stay out of it. I'd much rather the healthcare department, the Surgeon General or Secretary of Health focused on it and delivered judgment based on data.
Right. Absolutely. Okay, Dr. Bridge Bombi's been with us of Centric Health and Central Cardiology. Dr. Bombi, we have run out of time. I want to thank you again for coming on, sir. I want to wish you a happy Father's Day weekend. I hope you have a great weekend. We'll chat with you next week.
Happy Father's Day to you, Richard, and all the fathers out there. Stay safe.
Okay, you too, sir. Thank you. That's Dr. Bridge Bombi, Centric Health and Central Cardiology are the newest sponsors of the Richard Bean Show. Looking forward to that. Dr. Bombi on the airway every Friday here at 2 p.m.